Welcome to Notes from the North with Kyle and Sam.
Welcome back to Notes from the North. Kyle and Sam here, and I'm sure there's lots of words to describe last night's game, but just feels really disappointing the way that ended
Yeah.
up coming, because again, it felt like not a perfect game by far. A little bit of some memories from early in the season in terms of the turnovers, but
Mhm.
still felt like a relatively encouraging game from the Vikings, at least from my perspective. But
Yeah.
just the way the game ends matters a lot, and in the end of the day, Denver comes out on
Mhm.
top.
Yeah. I mean, that's basically right. I mean, Vikings are now 6-5, 5-game winning streak or ends, with the loss. It made me think of week one against the Buccaneers, in that you're basically going against a thoroughly average team. Nobody should be scared of the Buccaneers. You know what I mean? Like there are really good players in that team, but nobody should be scared of the Buccaneers. Now with Baker Mayfield as a starting quarterback. And similarly, no one should be scared of the Broncos. They're at best an average team. Russell Wilson is not who he used to be. They do have excellent players, no doubt about it. Denver has some excellent talent. Nobody should be scared of these guys. And so the Vikings are the superior team. They weren't yesterday. They got beat, I guess, last night. Um, and obviously it's the turnovers, right? Like, so you play against a team that you're not expecting to like totally mop the floor with them. This isn't some historically awful team or anything like that. But you're looking at the situation as one where the Vikings, even with all the injuries, even without Davenport and Jordan Hicks and Caleb Evans and Justin Jefferson and Kirk Cousins, go down the line, yeah, Crimey River, right? Like even without all those players, the Vikings have kind of shown recently that they're still quite a competent team, and the coaching staff has really been doing an excellent job, which I think we've discussed. I know I've been critical of a few different things here and there, but recently the coaching staff has just been top tier. And so I would think that you play this game 10 times, Minnesota wins 8 or 9 times. Probably, maybe that's too bold, maybe that's too optimistic, but there's a sense that just Minnesota is just a better team, frankly. And by committing those three turnovers, you had the Dobbs fumble, the Dobbs interception, and the Madison fumble, I think, was really the one that hurt really, really bad. I think if you're a Vikings fan, and if you're within that team and part of the coaching staff, I believe Sam, that's in the third quarter. The Vikings are up, I think, 17-9. And so do the math. That's an 8-point game, which an 8-point game, you're basically saying, you basically have to be perfect to tie it on your next possession, score a touchdown, get a 2-point conversion. And we did see later on in the game, not that the math was the same by that point, we did see Denver go for a 2-point conversion and be unsuccessful, right? So kind of underscoring the point that an 8-point cushion is not bad, especially as you're driving the ball, you're driving the ball, you're driving the ball. And by that point in the game, the Vikings have been doing a very good job of controlling the clock. It was kind of There was kind of this sense that the Vikings were in control of the game. They just hadn't quite put them away. I think back to when they were up 7-3 and they're kind of deep in the red zone. And I'm sitting there watching with my wife and I'm saying, man, they cannot settle for 3 points here. Like going 10-3 versus 14-3, it's just an entirely different feel. And then that 17-9 moment in the third quarter, the Vikings obviously did not get a touchdown. They kicked the field goal. Then you go to 17-9, and you think, man, if you add on 7 more points, right? 24, I believe, Sam, doing mental math here. So I mean that is quite a commanding lead given how well Flores has had that defense playing. So oof, that the Madison fumble was very, very deflating, I would say. Um, but then you kind of have a kind of micro example of a poor play and something disappointing. You step back as a whole, losing the turnover battle 3-0. And you think too, you had those two Josh Dobbs Bosch snaps, right? And he recovered both. And so, when you see that happen, the real concern is that you lose possession of the football. But those are just wasted downs. So that's like it's the equivalent of handing the ball off to Madison and getting stuffed at the line of scrimmage, or an incomplete pass, or when that like ends up being a -1. So like those are huge plays for the defense. So even if they weren't the backbreaking turnover, they're still really poor outcomes. Insofar it's a wasted down. It's a wasted chance to accomplish whatever, right? Before anything can even happen. So just a lot of really poor mistakes. An instance of the Vikings, the better team, really not taking care of, as Dustin Baker said in his piece there on VT, just football 101, just basics, man. It's all about the ball. It's always about the ball. Every single game's about the ball. The Vikings just did a very poor job in that regard.
Yeah, I felt like early on, it felt like, again, one was surprised that Madison was in the game to begin with the injury, but started off and played quite well at the start. Like he looked really good. But it has been a bit of a story this year with the fumbles. And there's turnovers, and no turnover is a good turnover. Fumbles just feel really sucky. But there's also just the situation of it. And like you said, up 17-9, chance to make it a 2-score game, and you lose it. And it's hard. And again, I do feel like there's a lot of good things about this game. I know that there was a lot of conversation. I don't know how much you watch of pregame football, but
nothing.
Sorry?
Zero. I got zero interest in that. But okay, keep going.
What's interesting, I find it just depends on kind of what I'm doing, but there was a lot of conversation about Josh Dobbs, and he has gotten a lot of attention NFL wide.
Definitely.
And I think that is like that first game, it's just kind of like, it was just kind of you jump in and you're flying by the seat of your pants. Follows it up with another great performance, and it did feel a little bit like, okay, like what's going to happen tonight? Is this run going to keep going? And again, I don't think he played poorly, but man, it just I don't know. I'm interested to see, because again, we've got one more game before the bye week.
Bears at home.
How they respond here, but
can we talk about that point though a little bit though with Dobbs?
Well, I was going to ask a little
bit how he's played. So the idea is, okay, so we talked about this last pod. Dobbs had a magnificent second quarter against the Saints, and then really had a poor second half. And then you go into this game, and I think I basically agree with you. It was neither a disastrous nor a phenomenal performance. The last drive in particular is very disappointing. A lot of small details being off, and even from just having to burn through those timeouts in the way that you did, as a result of Jordan Addison knocking that first down, and third down play, and fourth down play. Those end up being very consequential moments, right? You know what I mean? As you're going, they go into the drive with like 1:03 on the clock and all 3 timeouts, and they got to go like 30-40 yards to have an outside shot at a field goal and to win the game, right? And so you're thinking, like, you have to move with pace, but with 3 timeouts, that you have the whole field's available, and you can even run the ball if you want. If you get an amazing look, super light box, and you just feel like you can, take off for whatever, how many yards, like you can do that, right? But then they just did such a poor job in that moment. But then you also have him running for that touchdown, right? Which is not something Cousins can do, and nor is it something that Vikings fans have been accustomed to seeing any of the recent quarterbacks do. So, and then the Josh Oliver touchdown was really a great play. It was fantastic. Fantastic play. So there are some good and some bad. I think he stepped out of that game saying with an 80.3 rating, which is about right. You know what I mean? Like it certainly wasn't a great performance. It wasn't a horrendous performance. 20 for 32, 221 yards, took a couple sacks. He had a touchdown, both running and throwing. He had an interception and a fumble. Right? Well, I guess he had the 3 fumbles. The one ended up being a turnover. So, yeah, pretty a humdrum game for Dobbs. Um, and when you attach it to those final 2 quarters, the Saints, you probably say the past 6 quarters, he hasn't really been a very good quarterback, right? And I think that's just basically like I know there's so much hype right now around Josh Dobbs, and there should be because the circumstances are just still so wild. Um, but he hasn't been great these past 6 quarters, and that's just basically I think an objective fact. Now, does that mean you give him the hook and you say week 12 we're handing it over to Nick Mullins, or if Jaron Hall is 100% healthy, we're going to hand it back to Jaron Hall? I don't think so. Like I think you allow Josh Dobbs to play the Bears game. I think he's kind of earned that right, but they're going to go into the bye, assuming nothing crazy happens, and you fingers crossed that doesn't. They're going to go into the bye following the Bears game, and they're going to have Josh Dobbs, Nick Mullins, and Jaron Hall. We're all healthy, so that is your backup, your next backup, and then the guy you traded for at the deadline. Obviously, Cousins is the one who's missing. You got those 3 quarterbacks, and you feel pretty good about those 3, given that you're going into the Saints game with just Dobbs and Mullins. Excuse me, Dobbs and Mannion, Sean Mannion. So, the quarterback room is getting healthier, and that gives you more security should there be an injury, but it also gives you more options. And if Dobbs goes out and kind of continues, if he just mirrors this performance from the Denver game into the Chicago game, that will mean then you have 10 straight quarters of not really playing. 2.5 games as you go into your bye week. So, and keep in mind, the point of Mullins was to have a strong backup quarterback should Cousins ever go down. Someone who you believe can kind of keep the ship afloat. Someone who's got starting experience, bit of a gamer, teammates respect him. Not trying to create a quarterback controversy or anything like that, but you just kind of Dobbs wasn't great. Nick Mullins was the plan initially, and were it not for a back injury, Nick Mullins would have been the solution when Cousins went down. And you maybe don't even get that Josh Dobbs trade in the first place. Getting ahead of ourselves, but this is just kind of, I think, the lay of the land to a certain extent.
Wow.
I know, who's got the big spoon? They're gonna stir the pot, right?
Yeah, again, I think I feel like it's really hard to criticize Dobbs considering kind of just what he's coming to. And I think even like, again, if you isolate performance and you talk about it, like you look at these different quarters and again, it hasn't been great, but I think, again, I know you're not saying that he's like one bad performance and he's out, but there is like, I feel like he gives you an opportunity to do something. And
Yep.
I would have a hard time seeing you pull him out for a Nick Mullins at this point. Like that would be my thing, even just from a I don't know. I don't believe a whole lot in vibes, but I do feel like there is a little bit of a vibe that Dobbs brings to this team, and even just the scrambling. And you see that touchdown that he ran for, like the dude is a gamer, and I get it. Yeah. I think that's what this team needs. So again, I think unless it gets worse, I think mirroring this performance, I think continue to have him in it. Again, an injury can change things, and we hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah, that's a different scenario. Yeah,
but I don't know. I do feel, even despite the loss, I was thinking about it a little bit this morning, just realizing like at the point when the Vikings were 1-4, we were kind of ready to, like, we made those the sirens go a little bit on, like, this is a lost cause. Yet at the same time, we did say it feels like it's there. It just they just haven't put it together, and it feels like they're putting it together more. But I think last night's just an example of when you see, if you're not sharp in this league, if you have these turnovers, you will have a very hard time winning. And the Vikings held off for a very long time, making it work. The defense stood up on several occasions to keep them with a field goal. But again, I have a hard time going too far to the negative, considering if you take the body of work since they went 1-4, it feels like this is still a very good football team. Maybe very good,
Okay.
strong, but it's an above average team that I think still, again, I think odds say it too. Looks like you'll probably be a playoff team.
Oh yes, yeah. I mean, the odds are still very much in their favor. Not trying to make a Hunger Games illusion. The Vikings defense. So Denver rushed the ball 15 times for 46 yards. Right, they went 2 for 12 on third down. Right, and overall they were held to just 295 yards. A really excellent day from the defense. The Sutton play was just he's a yeah. He's a good player. He's a good player, right? And that's where you really miss a Caleb Evans, who's long and strong. You love having a long and strong dude at corner. On defense, you really want long and strong dudes at edge rusher and at corner, right? Think Daniel Hunter, think of Caleb Evans. Guys with great length who are really strong. That's what you want. So you tip the cap in that moment. You tip the cap, certainly. But it's really hard to be critical of the way the defense played. The one criticism maybe you could make of them or have is just simply that they didn't create any turnovers. Ivan Pace forced that fumble. It ended up kind of scooting out of bounds. That was kind of a disappointing moment, I think. Had they created a turnover or two, we're likely talking about a Vikings win rather than a Vikings loss. Even being -2 in the turnover differential or -1 in differential probably means the Vikings are 7-4 rather than 6-5. So maybe that's the criticism being had there, but they were kind of put in poor spots at various points, and up to the very end, field goals. And is it in Denver, for goodness sake? Right, field goals happen in Denver. So I can't be overly critical of Flores. My gosh, he's done an excellent job, phenomenal job, even. As we were saying previously, to just give the dude a raise, for goodness sake. Keep him in Minnesota. He is his defense is a pleasure to watch. It is a pleasure to watch his defense, and not that they're perfect. They still make mistakes, but boys, at least they're aggressive and they try, and at least they fly around. We'll see though. We'll see though with the offense. I think that at times the masses can get too high. The hype can become too much. And I'm certainly rooting for Josh Dobbs as a person, as a quarterback. I think he's a great dude. He's crazy smart. He's a really cool guy. Just such a neat person. And it'd be amazing if he had that Case Keenum magic in him. And if you think back to that season, in his first few starts, Case Keenum did not always thrive, right? And he made boneheaded mistakes throughout the year. And the Vikings didn't start that 2017 season in a great manner. They started 2-2, I believe, right? So, Dobbs is still getting his feet underneath himself. I'll just be curious to see the Vikings for the first time since Dobbs came into the game and started playing. The Vikings now actually have legitimate options at quarterback. They didn't have options at quarterback previously. They do now, right? And their next best bet all along was Nick Mullins. They like Nick Mullins. They traded for him, and then they gave him a 2-year extension, 2-year contract. They like this dude, right? And I can see why. He's a gamer. Again, we'll see. The hope is that Dobbs runs with it. This is a good team. This is, especially with where the defense is going. This is a good team. Final thing I'll say, disappointed with the punting. 2 punts, 2 touchbacks. That's critical field position, critical yardage. And in a game where the margin is 1 single point, those are moments that you are a little disappointed. And I think to myself, not to make too much of this necessarily, here I am creating all this controversy. Last year, Greg Joseph was very inconsistent. They didn't have any competition for Greg Joseph in training camp. They just gave him the job. This year, Ryan Wright has been very inconsistent. They didn't have any competition for Ryan Wright. They just gave him the job. It's a correlation causation issue. but I just kind of it hasn't been an excellent season for Mr. Wright, the sophomore. Um, and so I do think back a little bit to those, kind of what you're doing in the off season, and whether there should be just perpetually be that competition there. Um, Anyhow, that's a bit of a rabbit trail that we don't have to go down.
Well, yeah. Again, I feel like again they lost, and so I think it's worth
Yeah, you pick apart all these tiny little
poking
details.
some holes. I think we like again the difference of a win versus a loss. If something happens, Sutton doesn't catch that pass, or the Vikings
Yeah,
are able to go down and make a field goal, I think we're feeling a little bit different.
of course.
Again, I think it's fair. Like Ryan Wright, I thought had a very good rookie season. And taking a little bit of a step back, I was curious though, do you give any credit to like is any of that offset by that fake punt to Ty Chandler? Like that was exciting and a lot of
Gutsy
fun.
call.
Love the call.
Love the call. Super gutsy. The execution was great. Denver honestly made it very easy.
Yeah.
With the way that the end ended up cutting inside. But even if he hadn't cut inside, you've got the numbers. You've got the so you had 3 blockers, 3 defenders, and then Ty Chandler. And against that +1 math we always talk about. And so you're basically forcing Denver to react. And one of those guys in the line has to defeat a blocker and then be able to shut down Chandler before he can get to the edge and kind of scamper for the first down. You're thinking, friggin' good luck. Like, have you seen this dude run? He is fast, right? So, awesome play by Chandler. I know in the game broadcast we're talking about DePaula, the long snapper, just kind of getting it to him. And that's a sneaky important job, right? Being able to kind of kick it over like that, put it in a good spot. Love the play. It's simple, like literally, like kids at every level of football have that fake in. Just a direct snap to the up back, get to the edge. Basic football, but it's one of those ones where, like, if you have the numbers and you have some speed, it works, right? So, tip of the cap to the Vikings for that one, certainly. And poor. I guess given the field position, I don't think Denver was really thinking fake at all, which I guess was part of the point.
No. The like you said, credit to the Vikings on a good play, and thank you to the Broncos for making that really easy.
That's right.
Like those blockers got out there, and it was like they didn't have to do a whole lot of work for a little while. So again, I know we jumped a little bit all over the place here with this game. I don't think there's any like really strong storylines that come out of this. Just some different pieces. Like again, we talked about Dobbs, talked about defense. Let me ask you this. Let's transition a bit just as we wrap up here to the week ahead. And again, got the Bears, Monday Night Football, at home. Fair enough to say, I think you got to win this one. Like this is, like I know this is the second matchup of the year against them, but you got to win this game. Have to win it. You are Kevin O'Connell. And again, I know that at the end of the day, this is very much a Justin Jefferson call. Seeing what you've seen so far, understanding nature of the injury, nature of the player, do you put Jefferson in Monday night if he says he's good to go?
If he says he's good to go, then I say yes. Right? And it's he's cleared basically 6 weeks now, and this will be the 7th week by the time Monday Night Football arrives. You even have the extra day for whatever that means or whatever that's worth, playing on Monday rather than Sunday. And if he says he's good, then I think you said he's good. Like I know that the Vikings are very cautious, but I mean, you mentioned it earlier, Sam. It was surprising to see Madison in the game, given that he was concussed just last week, right? So there is a willingness to bring their guys back if their guys are cleared, and the belief is that they're 100%. And if that is there, then the Vikings will give them the green light and the thumbs up, right? So, I would say bring him back, provided he is 100%. And even from there, I know there's some talk about like bring him back at 100%. He can do exactly what he was doing prior to the injury. my vote does not mean thing, but I don't see there being much. If the issue is his lungs and just that he's not kind of used to playing his full complement of snaps, fine. You know what I mean? If it's not like you're not going to re-injure it, he's 100%, he's good, but he maybe doesn't have the lungs to play his full 100% snaps. He ends up needing to take 3 or 4 series off. Fine. You know what I mean? That's that's better than nothing. And then you of course you force Chicago to respect him being in the game, right? And in those critical moments, you have him in the game, right? So uh, I'm kind of cautiously optimistic that he'll play, just based off kind of where he's kind of been trending, and we'll see what they decide, I suppose, because again, what Sam thinks, what Kyle thinks means Jack poop. Jack poop will say.
Means
Yeah.
very, very little.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I considering the opponent, considering the player, like I would be cautious. Again, maybe you do say like this is actually maybe a nice way to ease back in. You
Yeah.
have him play limited snaps, get him back in, gets to try it, then has a bye week to make sure he's recovered. Yeah, I just hate to see anything happen, but I think you look at what happened yesterday, and you've got Hawkinson and Josh Oliver leading the team, and Chandler leading the team with 4 receptions.
That's
certainly
right.
was not like, again, I think probably you say your not that you say your best receiver, but the best performance was probably from Josh Oliver. Like the dude came in as a blocker, and he it felt like Dobbs really was targeting him, and again on the goal line, it was a great play down the seam in the second half. This team is very much better with Justin Jefferson, and
no doubt.
To see him and Hawkinson and Addison all rolling.
Man,
this
that trio, especially now. I mean, we were saying at the beginning of the year, but especially now that we've seen what Addison Hawkinson can do. Hawkinson, Addison, Jefferson. Good luck. Good luck. Those guys are amazing, right? So, yeah, I hear what you're saying. I say amen. So we'll see.
Yeah. If not, if not this weekend's the Bears, it does feel, especially with just the way the designation is, that there was conversation about does he come back this year. That feels like that's been put to rest. So again, definitely looking forward to Chicago this week. Again, we said it. You to continue this run and to continue to the playoffs, you really do need to win this game. And imagine saying that you go into your bye with a winning record after how the season started, right?
At 0-3, at 1-4, you could go in at 7-5.
Yeah,
anybody would have taken that, including the coaching staff.
Yeah, exactly. And so we can wrap up there. Again, as we said last week, we're over on YouTube now, Vikings Territory YouTube page. But again, check out Vikings coverage over at vikingsterritory.com, purpleptsd.com. Any closing words, any plugs for you?
No, you got it. That's those are the plugs. So I'll just say amen.
Perfect. Awesome. Okay. Well, have a good week, everyone. Take care, and we'll be back next Tuesday.
See
ya.